All right, so we'll call the meeting to order of the Finance Committee. Today's Tuesday, March 24th, 7 o'clock. We have attendees. We have Dave Cadero. Chuck Colby's absent. Rosemary Connolly is here. John Galvin. Scott Biasi is going to be checking in shortly. Ralph Mitchell is here, Al Cafferty, and Kathleen Otima. I'd just like to take an opportunity right now to thank everyone here for participating. This is kind of new stuff. It took two selectmen, John and the technology director, to drag me into the 20th century here. So I had initially thought we were going to do some type of a hybrid meeting where we have participants here at Town Hall, but there's some technical aspects of this that don't lend itself well to that, and I'm glad that I was talked into this completely virtual version, because it's obviously going to be a great tool for us. So thanks to John for getting it set up, Whitman Cable Access, and Josh McNeil, and obviously Frank and the Board of Selectmen have also spent some time trying to get some type of a permanent solution here while we're sequestered here for the COVID-19 virus. So again, just thank you all for being part of this meeting. So taking a look at the agenda, we have meeting minutes from February 25th that Samantha has provided. We'll go back to that. The reserve fund, just so you know, the reserve fund balance right now is $30,314. Last week it was $31,200, and we had an $886 transfer last week. So public forum, usually we have a placeholder for that. Obviously it's temporarily suspended for the COVID-19 limitations to allow the public into our meeting. So what we're going to review here in new business is Article 2 lines. We're going to take a look at the warrant articles as they are listed on the draft warrant we have before us. And perhaps we'll get a little bit of report from subcommittees and take a look at our meetings coming up. So with that, is everybody prepared to review the meeting minutes from February 25th? Is anybody?
No, I can't find my copy.
I'm trying to find them, get into on my other computer, because I usually get it off of this one.
Okay, the good news about February 25th meeting minutes, it's not very long. I don't know, it's the will of the body, but I could actually read it, and if you had something that you want to edit, you could do it that way. Or I can entertain a motion to table the meeting minutes to next week's meeting. What's the will? Anybody adamant that they don't want to proceed with the meeting minutes?
When were they sent out? I was trying to find them on my email.
I found mine.
Do you have a date?
Rick sent them out. Rick sent them out Monday, March 23rd at 5:23 in the morning.
Well, that's late.
Oh, Rick, look at you.
Yes, it is. You were running late that day.
So do you want to wait, Dave? Would you rather take a look at them before you, or you want to look at them now? Are you looking for them?
Yeah.
Dave is on the same email as the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
You get two attachments.
Yeah.
Oh, do you want to read them if they're so short?
I don't have a problem with it.
Oh, I don't either.
No, I got them. Oops.
I don't have them. I'm trying to get. They're on this computer, so I'm trying to get into my account.
Ralph, you weren't at the last meeting, and actually you were absent at the February 25th meeting, so you would be an abstain anyway. So, Al, do you have any problem with moving forward with the meeting minutes now, or would you rather wait till you get a copy? I didn't hear Al's mic. John, is his mic off?
I think he's having trouble with his audio. Keeps going on and off. Al,
As
you
long as we
back?
get the video, that's the important thing for Al. Can you lip read?
Yeah.
I can only imagine what he's saying.
I don't know what he's saying.
I was just reviewing my calendar. February 25th, I was in Atlanta, so I couldn't make it back in time.
Yep, no worries. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and read the minutes just so we can get them out of the way because we still have one more set of meeting minutes from March 17th that we haven't reviewed yet. And I think it'd probably be, I don't know, easier to just do one set of meeting minutes per meeting. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I would say it would be obviously getting the March 17th meeting minutes to us via email so that we can read them beforehand.
Well, that's what we did. Samantha sent them out.
No, I didn't get the March 17th one. I only.
No, March 17th aren't done yet.
Right.
So we'll have the March 17th sent out as soon as possible.
Right.
But I would suggest that you bring the meeting minutes to wherever you're going to be sitting, right? So you have them for the next meeting. So, all right. So there's basically 2 pages. And so I'll just quickly run through. The Town of Whitman Finance Committee was called to order at 7:03 by Chairman Anderson, who presided over the meeting. It was held in room 21, 54 South Ave, Whitman, Mass. So in attendance was myself, Dave Cadero, Rosemary Connolly, Scott Lambiesi, Al Cafferty, Kathleen Otina, and Chuck Colby. Absent was John Galvin and Ralph Mitchell. In public forum, we had Sean Kane, and we prepared the meeting minutes and voted the meeting minutes for 4 meetings at this particular meeting. The reserve fund balance stood at $31,200. So we entertained a motion for the January 7th, 2020 meeting minutes. It was approved, motion by Dave Cadero, seconded by Chuck Colby. And there was a discussion to request to add information regarding the change of departments for animal control. And so on the vote, I have abstained because I was absent at that particular meeting on January 7th. The vote was 6-0-1 to accept the meeting minutes. Then we reviewed the January 14th meeting minutes. Motion to approve by Chuck Colby, seconded by Kathleen. There was no discussion. I abstained and Scott Lambiesi because we were both absent for the January 14th meeting. And the vote was 5-0-2. Then we did the January 21st meeting minutes. Motion was made by Kathleen Otima to accept as presented, seconded by Scott. And there was a discussion to request to add in a statement regarding the meeting already in progress and the room was set up. So the vote was 7-0 on that particular meeting minutes. And the final meeting minutes were from February 11th. The motion by Dave Cadero to approve as amended, seconded by Kathleen. The discussion and abstained Scott due to absence at the meeting. The vote was 6-0-1. So at 7:03, the discussions began. Ms. Connolly stated that at the recent school committee meeting, Mr. Tuffy stated that non-mandated busing should be split 60-40 between Whitman and Hanson, with Whitman having the largest share. Ms. Connolly stated that there are more Hanson students who enter pre-K and remain within school systems, however, have smaller classrooms and more teachers. She feels that school assessment should be at 5%. Mr. Colby stated that the school district is responsible for distributing the funding they receive between the schools. Ms. Otina stated that she reached out to a member of the school committee and that based on enrollment, Duval is going to need 3 more teachers. Mr. Cadero would like to caution members of the committee that when a member of the finance committee speaks to a department head, that they specify that they are not speaking on behalf of the finance committee and that it's their own opinion. Mr. Anderson asked the members of the finance committee to review the most recent copy of Article 2, look for changes and determine why the changes happened. There are still outstanding department budgets that would impact the finance committee voting recommendations. The finance committee could make the recommendation to increase a department head salary to 1%. Mr. Lambiesi stated that the approach to salary increases are just being given and based on merit or job performance. Mr. Cadero stated that the Capital Committee will meet the first week of March. Once the warrant is closed, they will review and reach out to the department heads with any. Once that has been completed, the Capital Committee will then present their recommendations to the Finance Committee. Mr. Anderson asked that Mr. Lynham said that the funding for the school audit would come from a combination of line items with surplus and revenue and reserve fund. Ms. Connolly would like to specifically know what items will be reviewed in the audit and why those items were selected. At 8:25, there was a motion to adjourn by Dave Cadero, seconded by Al. There was no discussion, and the vote was 7-0 to adjourn. Did anybody find anything in there that they would like to amend?
Wasn't there something about, in that meeting, something about 4 extra firefighters? Dave had mentioned something about the firefighters, having 4 extra firefighters.
Dave, you call anything in the meeting about that on February 25th regarding firefighters?
For this, yeah, for the state, that we on average had 4 extra, or
His
a number that you had
microphone's
given.
muted.
4-man shift, 5-man shift.
Something like that.
Discussion.
Dave, your microphone's muted.
Is mine working right? Is mine working right? Now, Rick?
Yeah, Al, you're on. All
I thought
right.
that was that meeting.
I understand the situation you guys are talking about. I don't remember talking about it.
Okay. Not at this particular meeting, or?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I remember we had discussed, you said on average for the state, and I had asked if we had considered, if we had separated towns that had ambulances and towns that didn't, because the ambulances would, nobody remembers this.
Well, I know I would never use the term average of the state because that's
Or
not.
something like that. You said you have 4, you said something about having extra.
Yeah.
Well, I think
So
if-
what would we be referencing extra to?
I don't remember the conversation.
Rosemary, let me just say this. If we're looking to amend the meeting minutes with somebody's discussion, I think it should be that person that had the discussion that would be the
Yeah.
one to initiate.
I shouldn't want to, okay.
So if Dave doesn't
He doesn't
recall the
remember it?
discussion, I don't think we could include it in the meeting minutes, right?
I agree.
I actually drafted those meeting minutes while we were sitting in the meeting room. So if the discussion about firefighters happened and they're not in the minutes, then that didn't happen.
Okay, so there might be a different meeting.
Yes, it could be the 17th, which I wasn't there, but I can definitely tell you that it wasn't the 25th.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks, Samantha.
So I
Kathleen,
just,
you had a question?
just up where the discussion about the 5% assessment for the schools, it should be a 5% increase. So in the second paragraph, it was Rosemary speaking, and it says she feels that the school assessment should be at 5%, meaning a 5% increase.
I did.
Right.
So I just,
I think she was speaking specifically about that line item, I believe. And
right,
right now, it's not at 5%, right?
correct.
Okay. So how would you like to clarify the sentence? Right now, it says, she feels that the school assessment should be at 5%. Should be at a 5% increase? Is that what you want to?
Yes, to be at a
Yes.
5% increase.
Samantha, did
Just
you
so-
get that? So Samantha's,
I got it. Yep.
Thank you, Samantha.
thank you. Scott, welcome.
Yeah, for the record, Scott Lambiase joined the meeting at 7:11.
Lucky
Thanks
numbers.
for joining us. All right. Right now, I don't know if you could tell, but we're in the middle of reviewing the meeting minutes from February 25th. So, any other changes or corrections? All right. If not, I will entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes of February 25th as amended.
Make the motion.
Kathleen, make the motion. Dave, you gonna second?
Second, yeah.
All right. All in favor?
Is it?
Rick, I would make
Okay.
a recommendation that you do a roll call vote for any votes that we take tonight. It's just will be much easier than everybody trying to say aye at the same time.
Okay, so if I start at the top and I just say the first name and then you say yay or nay, how's that? Is that all right?
That makes sense.
John?
I abstain because I wasn't there.
Okay. Rick Anderson votes to accept. Rosemary?
Accept.
Kathleen?
Accept.
Dave?
Accept.
Al?
Last meeting I was not there.
Al, you were at the February 25th meeting. That's the one we're making.
I'm sorry. Yes, I approve.
Okay. Ralph, you will abstain because you
Yes,
were-
I was not there.
Okay, and Scott, yay or nay on accepting the meeting minutes as presented?
Yay.
Okay. All right, John, did you get the total? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Samantha's on it, so she would have it. And plus we
So
have
two.
it recorded.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you very much. That was pretty painless as far as the meeting minutes go. Now, if everybody has a copy of the Article 2 that was distributed last week, what I'd just like to do is just do a quick run through because, as I mentioned, we're just verifying any changes that took place. January 29th, if you recall, was the meeting of the department heads. And that was when Article 2 was amended for the very first time. And the department heads basically were asked to comply with the selectmen's recommendation to limit increases, and their total budgets were not to exceed a certain amount. So in that meeting, the department budget managers voted to amend their submitted budgets to reflect those new guidelines. So what I did is I went back to the January 30th Article 2, which was printed with those changes from the department head meeting, and then to compare against the Article 2 that we were given at last week's meeting. Does everybody kind of understand how we're at this position now?
Yeah.
Okay, so so looking at Article 2, on the first page, there's basically 9 pages, and I'm not going to go through all the lines. I'm just going to more or less tell you what's different about the Article 2 worksheet that you were presented last week and the Article 2 worksheet you were presented following the January 29th budget management meeting. So on the first page, the only thing different about the first page is that line 28 was removed. And line 28 was an extra clerical line in the accountants. And the reason why it was removed is because there's nothing there, 0. So that's the only change on that first page. On the second page, there are no changes exactly as it was. On the third page, the only thing I want to note that the final column is different than the copy from January 29th or January 30th, because the newest worksheet has a column with the Finance Committee recommendation. And so if you look far to the right where you see the last column and it says negative 100% in most of them, the reason why those math doesn't work out is because it's using the zeros in the Finance Committee recommendations. Whereas when those numbers are filled into that column, then that last column will reflect percentages of increases. So right now, if you're looking at column number 3, where the requested 2021 numbers are, following that is the percentage of a change over voted 2020. And then, like I said, the next column is where we will be putting our Finance Committee recommendations in. So everybody understand why that last column is off because of that math issue.
Rick, can I ask a question?
Yes.
The one you're comparing it to is what now? A January?
It's dated January 30th, and
January 30th. Okay.
Yeah, because there was the day after the department manager meeting.
I don't have that one, but my question I have is, if you say the very first line 5 for town administrator, on the January one, what is the percentage increase from in that January Article 2?
It's the same. It's a 2% increase.
Okay.
When we, just so you know, when the budget manager meeting started, and I'll just go back a little bit because we sat in on it, remember?
Right.
The town administrator was either taking a 0% or a 1% increase. And it only increased at the end of the meeting because everybody else decided to go to 2%. There was a hope, I think, at the beginning, if you recall, that everybody, department managers, would set an example by only requesting a 1% increase over the previous budget year. Remember, John?
Yeah, no, I do. And I did have several Article 2s in between there where it did show up as 1%.
Yeah, I
in
think he
those
tried.
drafts.
He tried it a couple of times to prime the pump, but unfortunately, nothing followed it. So he
Okay.
went back to the 2%. So that's where that is. That's a good question. So, last year, I think you recall, we made the recommendation to, to cut the budget by taking a look at department head salaries and changing them from 2% to 1%. So, I don't know necessarily if that's going to be something that's going to be considered this year or not. So there's no changes on page 3. But you get to page 4, looking at line item 110, and basically it's the police department. And I just made a note here because, as I mentioned prior to the meeting, that negotiations are now complete with the collective bargaining for the next cycle for a contract, and the selectmen are voting on that contract tonight. So what you're going to see is some changes in this particular area of Article 2 for our next meeting. So just, you can anticipate, can't really say what the changes will be, but I would certainly suspect that they're going to be going up following negotiation. So there is one change on page 4 where line item 156 is the administrative assistant for inspection services. And the only reason this changed from the Article 2 from January 30th was because of the number of days in the year, in the calendar year. Sometimes that affects the total of the salary for an individual. So that has been amended just slightly to with how the days of the year fall, and that's why that particular changed. On page 5, line 175, you'll notice there is no line 176 through 183. There used to be lines 181 and 182 on the January, and basically it was a placeholder for commission chairman's salary and commission members' salary, and that has always been 0. So those 2 lines were removed in the latest version.
What line are you talking about, Rick? 170?
Lines 181 and 182, which on the copy that you have don't exist.
Okay.
They did exist on the previous version. That's the only reason why I made a note. And I believe,
Is it 176, 177? They're not there either. Were they never
right,
there?
and they weren't there in January either. So
Okay.
they were eliminated at some other meeting. Yeah, because on the January it goes from 175 to 178. So they weren't there then either.
Yep.
So I think what happens is when something isn't used, it just gets hidden, and then if it comes back, they'll pull the line back in. So nothing further on. So on page 7.
Can you hold on 1 second?
Yes, John.
191. We talked about this at the last meeting. That was added in. That's never existed in the past. The stormwater management.
Yep.
Yeah, it actually was in the January 30th version. Stormwater management was there, 191, and it did have that 112,775.
Okay.
That,
All
right. So then there is 2 other changes on line 244 on page 7. So 244 in the January 30th version had dollar amounts in the previous years, 2019, 2020. They have been eliminated or removed on this particular version. And John kind of explained that at the last meeting was because technically that line never existed within Article 2. So the historical information, although there are dollar amount associated with that expense, they weren't within Article 2. But I do believe for the benefit of the voters, those numbers should probably be back in there, just so the voters can see the history of the changes from 2019, the actual vote in 2020, maybe with an asterisk to say that, you know, this is the amount was expended, but it wasn't in Article 2.
I would disagree with that, because if you add those numbers in, it throws off the percentages and the totals of all your subsequent subtotals. So it's going to throw off your, you know, comparisons of your Article 2 from last year to this year. So if you're going to put them in there, you got to make sure they're not calculated in the subtotals. And
So maybe Frank can formulate the cell in a way where it doesn't affect the total.
Yeah, that would be fine, and maybe put them as italic, or like you said, asterisk them or something. I just don't want it to throw off the totals, because you know, right now, you know, we're inserting a lot of new items to Article 2, specifically in the debt, and we'll get to that in a second. And it, you know, you don't want to throw off the people look at percentage increases, and all of a sudden you say, oh, we only went up 3%. Well, no, we went up 6%. It's all because they had those previous years' numbers in there that didn't really exist, don't belong in there. So that would be my only comment on that.
Okay, I made a note, and we'll bring that up to Frank when we get the next version underway. So, and then the same on that next page, on page 8, lines 261E through 261I. Again, the previous numbers were in Article 2 in the version from January, and the expended 2019 and voted 2020 numbers have been removed in this particular rendition of Article 2. So same reason, right, John?
Yeah, and again, for that exact same reason, yeah. And even the ones up above, that entire debt service last year was only $2,000. And now it's, you know, it says it's $1.3 million from last year, which that was not the case. So those were all separate articles last year. So we want to make sure that those aren't brought forth in total calculations.
Does anybody not understand why they're now part of Article 2 instead of a standalone article? I think it's a lot cleaner now, because these are reoccurring debts. So that's why they're included now in Article 2. So. All right, and that's the change that I can see. So page 8, yep. So anything else, John, that you see? There is one on the last page. There is a new line at almost the bottom. It says the total Article 2 minus the enterprise indirect cost offset.
That's something that I added in, only because we're still trying to figure out. So what that is the indirect costs, which are in, all right, what line item is it? It's line item 438. So line item 438 and I know we've had these discussions before, but that's basically what the enterprise fund pays the town for the town services. So for the accountant services, for the collector's services, and in the past, that money has gone unspent, and at the end of the year goes to free cash. And one of the Madden recommendations is to use that money to offset Article 2 items, similar to what we've done in the past with the ambulance fund, where it's used specifically for certain line items to offset the costs. There's still discussion on how that's going to happen. Frank, in some of his calculations, is using it as a revenue source. So like when he handed out at the last meeting at the March 17th, he handed out, I don't know if you guys can see this, he handed out this sheet with his revenue calculations, and he had it as a revenue source. So I think him and Ken, the accountant, are still trying to figure out how to do it. I think it's supposed to be deducted from or offset the Article 2 instead of used as a revenue source. But I just threw that in there so in my spreadsheet to make sure that I'm keeping track of it. That's all.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on the way the Article 2 is formatted? Anybody would like to see anything different, changes? I know we, in the past, have made recommendations of how the Article 2 worksheet is set up. I think the recommendations we've made previously are all kind of incorporated into this. One of the changes I think is to have a column like at the beginning where the actual expended amount. I don't believe we've ever had an actually expended column in the Article 2, so we can actually see how much was spent on each one of those line items. And like I said, eventually our Finance Committee recommendations will be going in the 5th column, and the difference will be calculated with the percentage to follow. So I think the format seems to be in keeping with recommendations that we've made in the past. Anybody see any problems with it?
Okay, I have one quick comment. If I'm comparing the same two documents, that under expended 2019, on page 9 of the document we're working on tonight, it has $36,434,552. And from a previous version, which is what I have dated 1/29/2020, it was 35 million.
The difference between the one. Yep. Yeah, I just want to say, Kathleen, the difference between the 129 version and the 130 version are all the changes that took place at that budget manager meeting. So if you're comparing it to the 129 meeting, then there's going to be significant different totals because
she's talking about 2019. You're talking about, Kathleen. So that again is the items that were inserted into this newer one for items that were not actually in Article 2 in 2019.
I get you, John.
So all those debt numbers and all that stuff, and that's what I'm talking about.
I'm good.
That's why we don't want those in there, in my opinion.
I get you.
Okay, good question. All right, so we're gonna what we're gonna do then, just so you know, is we're going to be getting a new Article 2. I don't know. Sometimes people complain about having so many Article 2s, but I think if you keep them in the folder in chronological order, it actually does help to find out how these changes were initiated, because, like I said, some people can get caught up on the fact that there are so many Article 2s, but basically it's just a work in progress. Unfortunately, it's just written down, So I just keep that in mind when we do receive a new copy of Article 2 next week that reflects the changes to the salaries for union personnel that are incorporated into the latest collective bargaining agreement. So that's what we should be at the point next week then to start running through articles, and in the same way as we do it at town meeting, to take a page, Articles 1 through 50, and just call out which numbers you would like to question, and then we'll have a discussion about amending whatever the recommended total is and what the person feels that the Finance Committee recommendation should be. Okay? Is that kind of clear, the way we do it?
Yep.
And then what we'll do is we'll take a vote on all the unquestioned lines, we'll vote them. And so what's really important is we have a good quorum, because these recommendations are the ones that are going to be incorporated into the warrant. So, it's nice to see a vote that reflects 8 or 9 members instead of 4 or 5. So I appreciate everybody being here tonight, but it's really going to be important to be on this platform for the next 4 weeks so we can vote all of the recommendations that need to be done for town meeting. So with respect to town meeting, I did mention the fact that Hanson has delayed into June. that is a possibility for the town of Whitman. I was asked today if that was something that the Finance Committee would support. We're certainly open to discussion. My contention is that we're
Breaking up.
going through the effort to meet to get to the finish line here. I would suspect that we are going to be prepared to make recommendations to town meeting in time for town meeting, because we have taken these extraordinary steps to continue our meeting. So, anybody else have any other?
I think that the town meeting can't happen. Large gatherings might be dangerous for the large elderly population.
Well, they are talking about changing quorum requirements. Special town meeting has certain quorum requirements. So taking warrant articles out of the special and incorporating them into the annual would eliminate the need to have those 150 quorums, and we could have a 50-member quorum.
I really think the more cooperation, the more we allow people to participate in government, the better. Waiting a little longer isn't going to hurt anybody, and it will allow for people to safely participate. It's just my opinion, but.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to project. Nobody's got a crystal ball on when this, virus will be at a point where we can go about our daily lives, including attending town meeting. So there are certainly opinions that would put the date well within the May town meeting when we can get out and about again in society. So, but like I said, Hanson,
I think, is making some good decisions. I don't know why we wouldn't reflect theirs in that regard. As far as pushing it off.
Rick, what's the actual date?
Well, I like that.
He's echoing.
Al, your audio is kind of repeating. I'm not quite sure.
No. Yeah, kind of move out there.
So it's May 4th.
May
4th to you, Al.
I like to say with May 4th.
Yeah. Did you get that, May 4th?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, so all I'm saying is, if we continue meeting in this platform, and we continue to responsibly evaluate the resources of the town and how we would recommend that their bills be paid, we could have it done in time for May 4th. But if the town meeting does get postponed, we're just more prepared,
I'd say that we do our due diligence if we can, but as far as, it's not going to be our decision, but we should continue to be prepared as soon as possible.
Yeah, okay. Does anybody think that their schedule won't allow them to participate in voting warrant articles and line items in the next 4 weeks?
No, I'm good.
No, I'm good.
No?
Right.
I'm here all day.
I guess better.
We do 2 of these a week.
Let's not get carried away. All right, so that's good. Then we're looking at our next meeting is March 31st, and like I said, we'll have a new Article 2 for review at that point. So the next thing on the agenda is to review the warrant. Does anybody not have a copy of the warrant?
This is Samantha. I don't, but if you can just send it to me in email, that'd be great, just so I can use it to follow along.
Yeah, we got it handed to us last week, so we could certainly put a request in for Frank to email it out. Because like I said, it's going to change once the Capital Committee, and Dave, I don't want to put you on the spot again, but you said that there's a possibility you're not meeting this Thursday. Have you set up a way to meet yet?
We have not.
Okay.
Dave, I'd be happy to run this type of meeting for you on Thursday.
Yeah.
You're the best.
And Josh is in your meeting as well, so, and he's familiar with what we've been doing, so.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to follow up then first thing tomorrow.
Yeah, sounds good.
Because it is kind of important that we get the recommendations of the Capital Committee, because the capital articles are a major part of the warrant. We really can't vote the entire warrant until we have a recommendation from the capital committee. You can see how that would work. It wouldn't work. So I could, if you want, I certainly don't want to read the whole warrant because it's going to change. So I don't know if the board is amenable to waiting till everyone gets a copy by electronic. Because Scott, you don't have one yet either because
Yeah, I'm just looking
last
at
meeting.
it.
Yeah,
I
it
finally
didn't come
got my email
electronically.
again.
It didn't come electronically, so I can't forward it to you. But tomorrow we'll get it out to you, and I would say that we could just table the review of the annual town meeting warrant until next week's meeting. So, unless anybody has anything that they want to talk about that's in there. There are some things that I've never seen, so obviously we're going to have a discussion about it. But like I said, I would rather wait till everybody has an opportunity to read it before we even start talking about it. Because sometimes warrant articles are passed over or eliminated before town meeting as well. So. All right. So, subcommittee reports. Anything to report? There's nothing to report really out of the capital committee, right, Dave?
Right. Yeah, no, we haven't met since our last finance committee meeting, so nothing to report.
All right, and the regional school amendment committee has yet to send out anything to invite participants to an initial meeting, so there's nothing to report on that either. And I haven't heard anything about the Whitman Hanson Regional School District financial person. Have you, Kathleen, anything about them looking for people to participate in the subcommittee?
No, the invitation to interview candidates, no, I've heard nothing.
Okay, because they were looking for, at one time, they were looking for a finance committee member from each town to participate in that as well, so.
Yes.
Okay.
I think they were looking for all the finance committee members and everybody in the large group is what I remember them saying, that we all got together.
That's a
It
big
wasn't
group.
just one.
A good
I
way to
know,
get-
that's what I was thinking.
No, this is about interviewing candidates for the business manager position.
Oh, no, not for the business manager. I think the last meeting, somebody had recommended that everybody get together for the budget.
Okay, so we'll hear about that when the school committee meets next, I'm sure. So, John, so when the next meeting, do you want to do a forecast for revenue update to your spreadsheet? The
Sure, I can do that right now.
forecast worksheet?
I have that updated now, and I'm currently right now looking at a total estimated revenue of almost 44 million. So it's like 43,861, 191. Our Article 2 with the offset that we were talking about is at 40,633,289. 289. So it's leaving a little over $3 million for $3.2 million in excess. However, just a caution there, my estimate sheet contains all of our free cash and every revenue source available that we have. So I think there should be some thought as we look at that we consider the fact that, first of all, we probably don't want to use all of our free cash to fund, in this year's budget cycle. The other thing we have to be careful about and really haven't talked about, has anybody really thought about how this current situation is going to impact the revenue of the town? There's going to be, in my opinion, there's going to be a severe impact on, people able to pay their taxes, their real estate taxes. I think you're certainly going to see it in the meal excise tax and other local receipts that, so, I mean, I think it's something that we need to consider at some point, that how is this going to impact the town? And, going forward, keeping maybe some extra money, not spending as much as we thought we might have been able to because of the virus situation.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. We should keep that in mind. That's a good point. And also to think about, at some point when we're going to look for getting the rest of these capital items rolled into, the recommended override committee coming up with a plan for all of the additional capital items, right? So, I mean, we talked about it last week when we talked about the new the new middle school. So there just has to be a long-term plan, and I think it's probably going to be important for the capital committee to kind of take a look at some more long-range plans than short-range plans as well. Is that part of the agenda for you guys, Dave? Looking at projecting out capital expenditures beyond this year and next year?
Well, yeah, that's we have two paths we're going down. One right now is to meet the deadlines of this year's town meeting, and then second, the capital improvement program is our second path that we want to get developed that will then satisfy those issues of what type of capital programs are coming down the next year. One thing that we did, has been a big concern of a lot of members is the question about what we're talking tonight is that what do we have to spend? Because what the capital committee does not want to do is to recommend capital expenditures when the capital is not available. So it's kind of a yin and a yang scenario with the finance committee that we see ourselves in.
Yeah. So that's where that capital improvement plan comes into play too. So, all of these are part of the recommendations that, we're hopefully putting together for a 5-year strategic plan. All right, so John, do you want to update that revenue forecast worksheet and email it out to the members before next week's meeting so we can have it with us when you go over it? All right, does anybody have anything else that under good of the order that they'd like to bring up? Something we've missed, something we didn't cover? That's everything that I had on the agenda.
I did notice that we still had the school at 4%, and I'm still questioning that.
Okay.
On this.
Well, when we look at Article 2 next week,
Okay.
I don't know, are we supposed to be getting some more information from the school committee this week?
Yeah.
They are meeting tomorrow night, and since Whitman hasn't changed their town meeting yet, theoretically, the school committee needs to set a budget tomorrow. However, we were talking about this earlier. Governor Baker put forth a proposal today, which I thought still needed to be voted by the House and the Senate.
It's up on their page.
That it has been. If it has been passed, then that's going to waive that deadline for them. It could even allow them it could do a lot actually for the school. I don't think we need to get into it here, but it could change a lot of things on how the school budget gets prepared. And it actually.
Well, they might even go forward with a 1/12 budget, right?
It wouldn't have to be a 1/12 budget. It would be a budget that that DESE believes is best for the school. So
You're basing it off a 1/12 though. Right?
It's based off of that type of budgeting, but it's not restricted to a 1/12. They would look at it. It's actually, I believe, would play in Whitman's favor in the fact that it's not restricting it to a 1/12. So if we don't, go ahead.
What I worry about is what I said last week. If we go to 1/12 under statutory, we will be less than last year, and that won't be allowed.
And
so
I
we're
think,
safe at 5% is where I'm
Well,
I'm
that
going
hasn't,
with
that, well, the 4%, we're already above that, so I don't see how that relates. But
We're not
it's-
above it at 4%, are we?
Yeah, we're 4% above it, Rosemary. It's a 4%
No, at
increase.
4%.
It's a
If we went
4% increase.
4% non-statutory, we would, but if we go statutory, we will not be.
Well, if it goes statutory 1/12, that's not
Well,
what
under
we have
this,
in our budget.
it's automatically statutory under the
Right.
governors.
Right.
So we'll be statutory, and then we won't, at 4%, we'll be under what we paid last year.
All right, well, why don't we keep this in mind when we bring this back up, when we take a look at Article 2 next week. Let the school committee make their decisions tomorrow night, and we'll have that information to use, and maybe that will help us narrow down our plan, whether we incorporate 4% or 5% into our Article 2. So, all right, anybody else have anything else that they want to bring up on the good of the order? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to our next meeting. Before I do, I'd just like to take this opportunity once again, John, I think this platform worked out just fine.
Awesome, John. Awesome.
Yeah, so thanks to
Thanks,
you,
John.
and make sure you extend our thanks to the Whitman Finance Cable Access for.
Rick, all I ask you to do is spread the word to those guys upstairs, because they're still fighting it a little bit. So, thank you very much. Definitely a lot of work went in by the WHCA staff. I mean, I kind of got things going, but Eric over there, Ryan Tully over there, Josh McNeil upstairs at, our guy, they did a lot of work too. So we're close. Obviously, there's some bugs, but I think we can work it out, and we'll learn more. This does have the opportunity to share like documents and things like that. So as we learn more about the software, I think we'll be using this for a little while. So the more we can use the tools that it offers us, the better.
All right.
Great job, John.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so we'll see everybody on this same place next week, next Tuesday, 7 o'clock. I have already posted the meeting. It's on the bulletin board, but nobody can see it. But it's also on the town website, so that's our main posting platform, I guess, for the foreseeable future. So again, be safe, keep your family safe, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Oh, Kathleen.
Did we vote to adjourn?
We did not.
We have a motion. Anybody want a second?
Second.
All right,
Yeah,
all in
I'll
favor?
second.
Rick, you look very presidential. Rick, you look very presidential.
All right, we'll see you all next week. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you all.